Hello there, world of tankers. Welcome to the channel. I'm your host, Droodles Blitz, and in today's video, we are going to be taking a look at the auction tanks that are available on the next set. So what do we have in front of us? The T55A, WZ122TM, TL7120, M4 Yo, Scorpion GF41D, AMX30B, and the Concept 1B. So we got a bunch of vehicles here. We're going to start off all the way to the one side and move on through. So we have the T55A, which is the least sold vehicle. It's currently 10,000 gold and dropping by about 250 each day. So it'll probably get down to maybe 8,500 gold by the final day. I'm not exactly sure what the total price drop is, but what I can say is that a T55A is actually a pretty strong vehicle. I think a lot of people underrate the 55A and its capabilities, but Wargaming continues to buff this tank over and over, and it's actually got some really good values. First of all, 3,000 damage per minute. It's got solid heat penetration, solid AP pen. It's very accurate. It got a big armor buff, so now its upper plate is actually quite solid at 120 mils effective, and the turret's also pretty strong with good mobility. I'm not going to say that the T55A is like an insanely overpowered or super duper strong tank, but what I will say is that in a decent player's hands, it is a very fun vehicle. If you like the old 62A playstyle, the 55A is basically that. So definitely a good shout for those medium players. I think 10,000 gold is pretty inexpensive for a tier 9, and I think if you can wait for it to go down to about 8,000, definitely consider picking up the 55A. The WZ122TM we can see is dropping by 500 gold, and it keeps going back and forth between the TL7120. The 122TM dropping 500 gold. I mean, 8,000 right now is definitely a little too expensive, mainly because of the fact most premiums that hit the store are around 8,000 gold. But if you wait 3 or 4 days and it drops by about 2,000 gold down to 6,000, the 122TM, pick it up. And the reason why is because the vehicle features solid gun depression at 8 degrees. The vehicle has 400 damage per shot, fantastic levels of penetration on the standard and premium, way better armor on the hull and turret than the Chimera, and because of that, it's actually a really fun vehicle to use. I've always liked the 122TM. I'm a firm believer that I think in a decent player's hands, you can make more of an impact in it than you can the Chimera, and it's because of the fact it has that better turret armor. You can get on the ridgeline, you can get more bounces when you pair that with the better heat penetration. It feels really nice. The best part is that you can play the role of a heavy as well because of the armor you feature, especially against tier 7s. If you do get put into a battle where you're up against most tier 7 heavies, you can very easily bring this thing up into the front line against them and easily bully them, which is great. Normally, mediums have to do the role of a medium and heavies do the role of a heavy, but this is one of those few times where a medium can actually do the role of a heavy, which is pretty cool. We have the TL7120, which is the same price as the 55A, but it's dropping more. Instead of 250 gold, it's dropping by 500. The TL7120 is okay. I don't hate it, but I also don't think there's anything truly spectacular about it. If the hatch was not on the vehicle, it would be so much better. But unfortunately, it does have a big ol' hongler bongler, and that hatch eats a lot of shells. It's not very hard to penetrate, and because when you pair that with the 10 kilometers per hour of reverse the vehicle has, that's pretty poor. Now, the vehicle does have good reverse if you use super speed boost, but that's only a once in every minute item. Plus, if you're running speed boost and adrenaline, you're basically nuking your repair kits. So these are all things to keep in mind. The vehicle does feature decent gun depression, however. It also has very good heat penetration, solid damage per minute. It's not a bad take, and its upper plate is super troll. Like, I actually enjoy the TL7 when I play it. And I think anywhere from 9,000 to 8,000 gold is a solid shout for the vehicle. It is still a tier 9. It is still a pretty solid one. It's just that there are other choices which I would recommend more versus the TL7120, which is where we'll leave it at. The M4Yo starting off at 7,500 gold, and it's dropping by 500 each day. That means you should be able to pick up this vehicle for maybe 5,500 gold on the final days. That's a pretty good deal. I actually think the M4Yo is an incredibly underrated tier 8. I've shared my opinions on it in the past if you want full guides on this vehicle, but I think it's super underrated. First of all, it's one of the highest credit earning tier 8s in the game, making it fantastic if you're trying to grind down lines. Not only that, the vehicle is fairly maneuverable, has incredible levels of turret armor. Even the hatch, it's a little troll, but as long as you manage to wiggle the turret and hide the hatch, the actual turret itself, the oscillating bits, are super well armored. Even if you're aiming on the flat side of the turret, it's still like 240 thick. It's crazy. The upper plate is pretty solid. The vehicle has great gun depression, and it features a unique auto-loading mechanic, which allows it to out-reload any other 300 alpha gun, but at the downside, you have to wait about 14 seconds to get your 4 shells back. I really like this tank. I didn't like it when it first came out, but the more I've played it, the more I've really started to enjoy it. I'm not exactly sure what my statistics are in the vehicle, but we can take a brief look to see if I'm doing anything good in it. I also think the legendary camo looks absolutely sick on the tank, but taking a look at my stats, I've got pretty solid average damage, as we can see, 2,700 with a 70% win rate. It's pretty good. It's pretty dang good for a heavy, especially in tier 8. You can see it's about the same average damage as autoloaders like the Scepter or the Somavente Contra Car 64 for me. So it's definitely a good performer, and the fact that it earns credits as well is just great as well. So not a bad tank, especially for the cheapness that it's probably going to be in the upcoming days. The Scorpion G is dropping by a huge amount of gold. It's going from 8,500 to 7,000. Now, I don't know if it's going to continue to drop at that extent, if the next drop is going to be, what, 5,500, and then the next one's going to be 4,000. I don't think it's going to drop that much. But if it does, I would say when it's at 5,500, buy the Scorpion. Because it's a fun tank. The SU-130PM is better. There's no doubts there. Like, I know a lot of people try to argue for the Scorpion, and then there's also people that argue for the SU. But the fact that the SU-130PM has better mobility, more heat penetration, and most importantly, much better camo values with better gun depression, it just makes the SU-130PM a better tank. However, the Scorpion G is still great. It does have better accuracy, and because of that, it is very fun when you can get that gun to work on a proper map. The only problem is that it has 0 armor, and not having Spall Liner is a big weakness. I think if Wargaming gave the Scorpion G Spall Liner, it would be a lot more enjoyable. But it is a very fun tank, and I think for the price tag dropping that it currently has, it's not going to be a bad shout at all if you can get it for about 5,500 to 6,000 gold, especially if you want a fairly fun, campy-style tank destroyer. So that's what I'll say about the Scorpion. We have the M41D. And the M41D is starting off at 3,500, and it's dropping by 250. So that means it probably gets to around 2,500 by the end of the event. Honestly, the M41D, I'd pick it up when it's at 3,000 gold or less. This is probably the most fun tank in the entire list. And I know there's a lot of pretty solid vehicles here. There's even a Concept 1B. But out of all the tanks in the auction set, the M41D is by far my favorite. I absolutely love it. And if you like the Dracula, or you don't have the Dracula, but you want something that's similar to the Dracula, the M41D is your best bet. The thing, you can see I've played over 100 games and 75% win rate, and I'm averaging 2,200 in this light. That's a lot of damage. And it's because this vehicle has crazy good DPM at 2,700 with calibrated shells on. The vehicle achieves a top speed of 70 with a power to weight of 34.3. This thing actually has, believe it or not, a better effective power to weight than the Dracula. Like, that's insane. It's so fun. In fact, I like this tank even more than the Dracula due to its playstyle. So, pick up the M41D. Like, I'm being serious. This is by far the most enjoyable tank in the list. Plus, it's a premium, meaning that Wargaming can't nerf it. So, as long as it's a premium for now, it cannot be changed. Definitely consider picking that beast up. And then we arrive to the final 2 vehicles, the 30B and the Concept 1B. Now, contrary to what other content creators are going to say, I don't think the 30B is a bad vehicle at all. I actually...
Someone is at the front door.
Okay, well, my Alexa said somebody's at the front door, but we're not focused about that. We are focused on these final 2 tanks. My grandparents are coming over, so that's why. I'll say hi to them in just a moment. But the 30B and Concept 1B. I actually think the 30B is put down by a lot of content creators, but not a bad tank still. It features great mobility, solid turret armor, and good gun depression. And those 3 values combined create a very enjoyable experience. I do think that the Leopard one is better right now, but I do like the differentiated playstyle that the 30B does feature. It's dropping by 1,000 gold each day, which means if you wait the whole 5 days, the 30B might get down to a price tag of around maybe 10,000 gold. That's a really good deal, especially for a tier 10. I think it's a fun tank. If you like the Leopard one and you want a Leopard that has a little bit more armor, the 30B is definitely a solid shout to go for. The gun is accurate, the DPM is still solid, and its mobility is great. Plus, if you want my personal opinion, I think in the future, this vehicle will get a buff again, so do keep that in mind. Wargaming usually likes to rebalance the tiers every 8 months or so, and it's been about 4 months since the last rebalance. It would not surprise me if when Wargaming did rebalance the game again, they did buff this tank, so that's another thing to keep in mind. Finishing off, we have the Concept 1B. This is the best tank of the lot when it comes to capabilities. There's already 700 concepts sold, and it's at 14,000 gold currently. It's dropping to 13,000 gold in the next price drop. What I will tell you is that if you don't have the concept, and you want the concept, get it. Even at 14,000 gold, if you think that it's going, let's say you're going to sleep, and you're worried that within the next 8 hours from when you wake up it's going to be gone, get it. 14,000 gold is a really, really good deal for the Concept 1B. In fact, it's the cheapest it's ever been sold. The Concept 1B is an overpowered tank in a decent player's hands. If you don't know how to use it, it's not good. But if you do, it's great. It has 3,000 DPM, it has a reserve track mechanic, meaning even if you do get your track broken, you can still reverse. The vehicle has 10 degrees of gun depression. Now that Wargaming has buffed calibrated shells, it has enough heat pen to cut through an E100 turret reliably, which it didn't used to in the past. The vehicle has insane levels of accuracy. It has just as much mobility as a T95E6 with only a 5 km/h slower top speed at 45. The thing is insane. It is by far one of the best heavies in tier 10, and you can see that from my stats with over 3,400 average damage and a 74% win rate for 500 games played in this thing. The concept is insane, and yeah, it's, even though it doesn't do as well in the current meta due to the influx of autoloaders, it is still an amazing tank, and if you want a vehicle that you can chill, hold, and not bleed, get the concept. I would say that 14,000 gold starting is a great price. If it gets any cheaper, you can consider to pick it up, but that's what I'll say. Hopefully you enjoyed today's video. If you'd like to see more like it, please consider smashing that subscribe button down below, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye-bye!